Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to another episode of What's in a Performance, the series where I take performances and performance videos, analyze them, break them down, explain what's going on behind the scenes to what our favorite pianists are doing. Today, the ANIMENZ'S fanboy is back because we're going to be talking about ANIMENZ'S Gurenge. Of course, this is a very popular OP for Demon Slayer Season 1. And with Mugen Train finally coming to the States at the time of filming this, there's a lot of hype over Demon Slayer because that was really good. That was a really good movie. So yeah, I'm excited to take a look at ANIMENZ'S Gurenge. I think he has this listed as one of his harder arrangements, so it'll be interesting to take a look at exactly what he does and to see some of the techniques that he uses. And with all that being said, let's take a look at ANIMENZ'S mastery of piano breathing and get right to the video. All right, we're all set to get started with ANIMENZ'S Gurenge. I have the sheets in front of me as usual, and we will be watching this video together. All right, let's go. That wrist motion though. Rapid chords. Actually, real quick, as per usual, we're stopping really early because that's just how I do things. But this is an interesting thing that he's doing here. Okay, so watch the wrist again. Coming up, right? A lot of pianists or self-taught pianists never learn this, but there's what we call a down-up motion associated with slurs and legatos. When you go down on the first note of the slur, typically it's phrased heavier, right? So then we want to drop your wrist to create that downward motion of weight, and then you're almost like rotating about the knuckle as your wrist comes back up to then get a lighter tone, right, on the note that it's coming up. ANIMENZ is applying that technique here somewhat, right? As he's coming up here on the last note, by pushing up a little on the key and lifting his wrist in such a way that it alleviates some of the weight that's going into the keys that came from the initial chord. So if we watch it again, he does this every single time. See, there it is. You hear it getting lighter because he's coming up, right? And now that he doesn't have to phrase that way anymore, he sticks on the key. So if we watch again, right, he's initiating a lot of this motion from the wrist. It's almost like the rapid octaves from Let's Sing It in Rhapsody No. 6, right? Where you're like off to spamming like this, and all of that has to come from the wrist. And for sure, we note that his hand isn't coming as high, right? He's not coming like super high off the key in order to get that speed. Okay. So actually, let's go back and take a listen to that verse before we get to the pre-chorus. I want to note the pedaling. How there's like very specifically, like distinctly dry section, but at the last beat, it's like the pedal comes back down and is dry to give it more articulation on this chord that comes up. So here, in his left hand, he's playing kind of like chunkly, right? It's kind of blocky. Each note is kind of articulated without much like overall phrasing. But the only things that come out as phrasing are the G major chords, right? Because again, your ear is drawn to the D, or I shouldn't say the G major chord, but like the D that comes up in the each and every single note. I'm just looking at the measure, the first measure where this occurs, and it happens to be a G major chord. The left hand is staying very consistent, right? You'll notice right now he's not phrasing the left hand. Rather, he's using the left hand as articulation and texture to support the right hand under, that's coming in on top. Right, and there's interesting contrast. So if we go back to the section again, right, the left hand has been very constant, very consistent, and you get this sort of tonality by lifting the fingers and striking the key, right? And now everything is super smooth and connected, right? And you can almost see his hand not pressing the key all the way down. And of course, here's the contrast. Interesting. Just tremolos though. I love those arpeggios. They go up and down. Yeah, the arpeggios here are really nice, right? Because they create a sense of movement. Here, throughout the entirety of this song, it seems like he's going for something that's very percussive, right? Very percussive, very articulate. And so you don't see connecting, right, by the octave. This is something that I was looking at. So despite the fact that the top notes are not connected, that doesn't mean that the melody is still not prominent, right, or being expressive. We have to think about phrasing and musicality in several senses, right, in several ways. We can control the phrasing and movement by dynamics, we control phrasing and movement by tempo, but the last layer, or I guess another layer, is articulation. And if you remember in the pre-chorus, ANIMENZ'S comes in very softly and very connected, and now the contrast is a very strong, percussive main chorus, right? And of course, to talk real quick about the tremolo here, right, it's a wrist rotation, again, like back and forth like this, like that, and then coming out of that into the arpeggio. That's always fun. I'm always amazed at how like this simple left hand pattern always creates such a like the right groovy feeling that's like equally percussive and also equally like interestingly driving at the same time. So this is one of the things that confuses me about ANIMENZ'S, but I don't question it because he's the master, is how often he plays with flat fingers. Flat fingers are, you know, not like the end of the world. It's like frequently more often artistic choice at the intermediate level to advanced level, right? Then it is a blunder, as it is for a beginner. I mean, one only needs to look at examples like Horowitz, right, to see that he played with very flat fingers in a lot of places. But flat fingers rarely work when you're playing technically very swiftly or anything of that nature, or very articulately or very strongly. But for stuff like this that's soft, that's more melodic in nature, due to the way that it's connected, flat fingers works out very well, right? It is a textural choice that one can make. The reason why I'm confused about ANIMENZ'S is that he does this very, very often, right? The three-hand technique that we're all big fans of, right? Every time the voice moves into the middle register, the way he voices it, if it's slow enough and is like very connected and legato, is with flat fingers. But again, as per usual, what do we know about phrasing, right? What do we know about phrasing and melodies and carrying melodies and like dynamics and stuff like that? First thing that we look at always is how high are we lifting the fingers? The second, how much weight are we adding to each note? Third, where are we striking on the key? Fourth, where are we striking with the finger, right? And so let's take a look at that for ANIMENZ'S right here, right? So big note of his left hand. Okay, so he's striking flat, right? He's bouncing a little with his arm, right? So he's adding a little bit of like arm weight into it. Right? Finger's not coming up too high. In order to keep the mezzo piano dynamic. Oh. So listen to that pre-chorus section, right? And how dry it is. And how that contrasts with the verse section that comes right before. It's very wet and it's very reverberant, right? There's a lot of bleed that comes from like the other parts, but it's like tamed because it's mellow, right? Because it's in a mezzo piano. But then take it up to a mezzo forte, take it up to a forte, right? With this pre-chorus section, and boom, instantly different, right? Instantly different. Yes, one, because of articulation. You hear it gets a lot spicier, a lot more staccato-y, right? Like even this sort of motion, instead of like connecting like very, very closely, is very much staccato-y, right? And it's the same technique as before. And then this is helped by pedaling less. Pedaling less allows more of that textural difference to come through. Take a listen. Right, no pedal. Except on the notes where he jumps down, right? He pedals going down because he's adding on beat to create an accent on this note, right? To help it ring a little bit more, so that he also doesn't have to jump and land as harshly, right? And so he has a little bit more control. And that's what he's doing here, to give himself a little bit more control when he takes the jump down. There it is, yeah. And you can hear it being held a little bit over as well. And now there's more pedal in order to keep the bass note ringing throughout the measure. But that's okay, right? Because the texture is maintained by the fact that the right hand is so high up that the pedal doesn't add that much mud to the sound, right? The lower in register a key is, the more it muddies the entirety of the sound when we hold the pedal. So it's an entire gradient across the keyboard. So what that means for us is when we have a textural element that we want to sound very dry, very peppery, right? Very spicy. If it's higher up, and we have a melody that's very connected down low, we can be more liberal with the pedal. When it's lower in the register, right, then we have to be more conservative with the pedal because then it's gonna get hidden, it's gonna get muddied. Again, same comments from the first chorus. Oh, I just love how like, the melody is like up here, and then the arpeggios are like all like below down here, right? All the filler arpeggios are like down here, and then you get like other stuff that vacillates between like here and there. Oh, textural difference, right? Everything's very connected now. And you even see, right, with some of the things that he's doing, right, the down up comes back. Again, for more connected feels, you lift the fingers less and you use more arm, use more wrist, use more rotation, right? If you want something more articulate, lift the fingers more, right? Lift the fingers more, use less wrist, or use wrist in conjunction with that. Ooh, he's going all one for that? Fascinating. Again, it's like even in this section, the connectedness comes from the right hand, right? And it's like the melody is, yeah, it feels more connected because it's a more like mezzo piano-ish. Here you see again, right, like the... So here, the technique is a little bit different from just down up, right? This is more of a staccato. So there's two ways that we can really play a staccato. The first is by just lifting quickly off the key. But there's a slightly different staccato, which is, I don't think there's a specific name for it, but if someone knows that there's a name for it, you should tell me. But I call it a plucking staccato. And so for the first one, I lift quickly like that, right? But the second one, I pluck the key almost as though I were plucking a string. And this is what ANIMENZ'S is doing here in order to get that sort of lift with an attack. Very interesting, very interesting. So let's watch it. See, there it is, right? It's helped definitely by the wrist coming up, right? To help claw a little bit more strongly, but... Ooh. Okay, so... on one hand, this is really cool. And ANIMENZ'S clearly knows what he's going for. He's going for a very heavy and percussive tone, right? Which is why he's coming down from above like this. He's got it under control, you know? Is ANIMENZ'S. This is ANIMENZ'S. But yeah. Oh, the upwards gliss. Ooh, you can see him leaning in, right? This is not just I'm slamming my hand down. Okay, yes it is. I'm slamming my hand down, but there's a technique to it too, or a slight technique, because there's arm weight that goes into it, right? Body weight that goes into it. At the same time, he's able to maintain this light feeling in the right hand. Right? Like, again, same movement right from the wrist, and he's also phrasing the top note. And of course, arpeggios. Again, same thing with the tremolo. Was that octave gliss? Yes, sir. Oh my gosh. Octave glisses? Okay, so... they're hard. It's hard to get the right tension in your fingers, right tension in your wrist even, and your arm to be able to pull all the way down. Oh, dang. That was a very interesting choice. You hear that, right? It contrasts from literally every other chorus that he's done. Why? Because it suddenly became more connected. He added more pedal into the left hand, so you hear the... right, you hear that a lot more. And also because he's holding the note slightly longer each time. right? This is all still very percussive. And then that all of a sudden, a little bit more connected. Interesting. I don't know if he consciously did this, but if he did, even if it was subconscious, then it's like genius, right? Ooh, you see that? Look, okay. Right, look how he jumps up. Like, takes a split second to compose himself before he plays them. So this is an interesting thing, right? What you should always do, right, with jumps is, if possible, don't just land on the note and play. You want to set yourself up and then play the note, right? And again, wrist motion. Ooh, you see him going down, right? And it's like this going down with weight that allows him to spring back up in order to come back to these keys in the middle, right, to make the jump. We see that a lot more prominently there because it's slower, but this is essentially what he's doing each and every single jump. And again, very percussive. Ooh, and very, very deep into the keys. Very nice, very nice. This was really good. It's certainly a lot more percussive than I feel like a lot of the other arrangements are that ANIMENZ'S has played. But it matches, right? Like the original song from Lisa as well. This is a very nice arrangement, and the playing is phenomenal as well, which is, I guess, to be expected since it's ANIMENZ'S, so. Alright, and that about does it for this video. Gurenge is definitely one of the more difficult arrangements just looking at it. Perhaps not as hard as my Dearest, technically, or even Unravel in some ways, but it's different, right? It's hard to compare because the musicality is different as well. And so I find it very interesting how percussive ANIMENZ'S plays it, but it, again, reminiscent of the original style of the song, and so it makes a lot of sense. Hopefully some of what I've talked about helps you with whatever you're working on. But yeah, thank you so much for sticking through to the end of this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe to let me know that I should keep making content like this. If you'd like to support the channel and help me continue making videos like this, you can do so at Buy Me a Coffee or Patreon, or you can get Waki's merch. Links for all those are in the description below. And if you would like to see more of these sorts of analysis videos, feel free to click right here, or you can watch me play and you can click right here as well. Be sure to catch my streams on Saturdays where I do a lot of this analysis live, except on your videos to help you guys out with playing and learning musicality and stuff like that. And until next time, everybody, peace.